Okay, Andree.
Yeah,
Chapter 22, you say?
yeah. So this is chapter 21.
Oh, 21. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and what's the chapter called?
The chapter is called
Or what's the first
the
heading on it anyway?
the inexpressible mind of God.
Oh, okay. So we're getting into it now then.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the first underlining on 458 is metaphorically speaking. I am talking to myself at the end of the day. We argue with ourselves, go to war with ourselves, love and hate ourselves. It's all us. We are all one. But for the sake of pretending that we are not all one, and that myself and you are not God, I will continue to finish this book on how to know God, how to know ourselves. Yeah, and that makes me think about whatever one does to another person or for another person. Someone also do for oneself and or against the other person, so to speak. So
Yeah.
the sword has two ends in and of
Yeah. Well,
itself,
I think,
because you will bear the conscience of doing something as well, you know?
yeah, if we're decent moral people, but obviously there's lots of psychopaths out there. There's lots of people which would murder without conscience. And so, unfortunately, it doesn't follow that we have a realization what we're doing to others, we actually do to ourselves. But I think when we get older and we get more pensive, wise, and insightful, we will start to have regrets about certain things that we did.
Yeah,
Now, this is one of the things that entheogens does for you. It's like when we take mushrooms. Mushrooms uh, kicks in our conscience, and we become pensive about all of the things that we've done which have upset people, and we wish we didn't do such stupid things and we didn't hurt people. You know, because we never thought about anything. We said and we did things, but we do carry the weight of them, and they
yeah,
come back to haunt us when we're older.
yeah,
So that kind of shows us that we are all one. When we become softer and less egotistical, then we do start to feel people's pain, what we inflicted when we were younger.
yeah. And working through it in time, one can let go of the weight from that pain as well, yeah? Like you've gone through in other chapters in the book as well.
Yeah, I've often listened to people who have taken certain entheogens,
Yeah,
and they said that the biggest thing that bothered them was the pain and suffering they caused people through their lives. And where possible, they got on the phone and spoke to whoever they, hurt. Well, family members or old friends or ex lovers, these sort of things. And they were apologizing profusely because they wanted to, first and foremost, try to alleviate the pain that the other person may have still been carrying, but they also wanted to alleviate the guilt that they were carrying. And
yeah,
so to bring about atonement,
yeah.
And that does set us free. And so I was speaking in another chapter about confession and
Yeah.
how that you know it works very well if we don't have the person uh, to confess to.
Yeah.
So we did actually cover that question last time, but it's always useful to go over things again.
Yeah. So the next underlining, aha, we covered that one last time.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I said it was a good theme to end on in any case.
Yeah. I forgot pretty fast then.
Yeah, and you see, it's this is a reiteration of how my memory serves me.
Yeah.
Is you'd forgotten, and I was just hearing deja vu. But I let you continue because I thought, well, it's a good line in any case, and there's always
Huh.
something new to say about that. But yeah, very often these days, Andre, I'm making videos about the vast differences between the human psyche.
Yeah.
Some of us have, very good memories. Others have appalling memories. Some of us have a very deep conscience. Others don't have much of a conscience at all. Some of us see the beauty in the world. Others will never see it. There is a massive difference between all human beings, and it really is quite a phenomenon. And I'll say in
Hmm.
one of my videos today that we must have all had these scenarios when we're growing up and we are arguing with someone and they just don't get what we're saying. And we're kind of like, we're incensed. You don't get it? What the fuck is wrong with you? All this sort of thing. But
Yeah.
when we become older, wiser, and more versed in human psychology, well, we realize that people just simply aren't all the same. They don't see the same, they don't feel the same, they don't hear the same, they don't experience the same. And how many times in my videos have I said, if we both took the same walk, you and I, we went on a 5 mile hike, and then we wrote all about it when we got back, we would both write completely different accounts of what
Yeah.
we experienced,
Yeah.
even though we would swear that we walked in the exact same place. But this is the thing, you see, what makes it the exact same place? The only thing that we perceive is in here. And so
Yeah.
we perceive what is supposed to be out there in here. But scientists tell us that we don't actually even perceive what's out there because there's nothing actually out there. It's a projection from what's in here.
Yeah.
Donald Hoffman, he's wrote a book and he's on the circuits at this moment in time. And he's always saying, look, the world for us is like a computer screen. Our senses create a computer screen which enables us to make sense of the world. But the world isn't the computer screen. The world is the binary on the hard drive. And that is simply zeros and ones. So out there, if we take away our senses one by one and we forget that we ever knew any language or concepts, then what actually would be out there? Just a fuzziness. We couldn't say any colours. We couldn't say any distinguishing marks from anything. It would all meld into a one fuzzy thing. But what
Yeah.
we do is, you see, we project onto it when we learn about microphone, glass, trees, sky, and then once we know these things, once someone says, "Hey, look over there," that's called this and that's called that, then we build our worlds. But if we imagine that the world is like the computer screen, we think that this is real. You think you're speaking to a human being, and I also. But what are we actually doing? We are looking at a computer which is displaying to us zeros and ones, pixelated. There is no human being here at all. You, apparently, are in Sweden, and I'm in Britain. And yet we have this illusion. So you see, our mind creates the illusion all the time, just like a computer.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
I have tried to get my head around it, because it's so vastly outlandish to be able to draw away all concepts and every word from a certain thing, and then it's just yeah, there was something that sees all that, but it can make something of it.
Yeah, well, picture this. Um, you say we are convinced that there's a sky and there's clouds and there's trees and there's fields and mountains and all that different sorts of stuff. But if an extraterrestrial came to this planet, landed his spaceship and got out and started to have a look around, and the captain of the mothership said to him, "So, what's going on down there?" And the alien would go, "There's nothing here, boss." "What do you mean there's nothing there?" "No, it's just a load of fuzzy stuff. It's just a load of fuzzy isness." And the captain will say, "Well, surely there's something." But you see, if that alien had never ever seen any of these things on Earth, it wouldn't know what it's looking at, would it?
No,
So therefore, that's what this world really is.
unless he has a reference point to something he already know.
Got to have a reference point, yes.
Yeah.
If he's got no reference point, there's nothing here except fuzziness. And that is apparently how the cosmos is. The cosmos is just a fuzzy mass of energy vibrating until consciousness collapses it into something which is considered to be solid and
Mm.
visible and tangible.
Mm.
No wonder people don't want to read my book.
Mm. Yeah, it's good to think about it. Yeah. And it will be interesting to read your book again, because I will read your book again, because we will read it together, me and my friends as
Right,
well. But that will take some time before we do that, because we have a list that we work through and read together,
right.
so to speak.
Yeah, you see, the things I'm speaking about in this book, like I've just spoke there,
Yeah.
if people don't know what Donald Hoffman's hypothesis is, then they wouldn't know what I'm speaking about. They'd find it very difficult. If people didn't know what the concept of Buddhist Maya is, they
Yeah.
wouldn't have a clue either.
Yeah.
If people didn't uh, understand the quantum physics double slit experiment, where it states that consciousness collapses the wave function of probability into something which is considered by us to be physical. You see, there's a whole bunch of things I've tapped into, and I know all of these facets of what brilliant people have said about the world and experiments that they've done. And then I compile all that information with my own experiences of being out of body and having psychedelic experiences and paranormal experiences and all different sorts of things like that. And then by the time you've done all that, you know that this world is a very, very curious place. And
Yeah.
it is absolutely nothing like what we think it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I've been thinking lately also that apparently I need some antigens because I haven't had it in a long time. And every time somebody says something about it, hmm, I feel like I slipped out of a certain perception which I have had in the past, but I'm coming back to a more normalized perception, you know?
Yes, that's
Even if
right.
I do all the things like meditating, reading books, and so on, you know, um, I think I might go back to it because so I was thinking when I read certain things in your book. Well, if I had had like a couple of trips recently, I would probably underline more things here, but I could not do that because I couldn't get into that mindset, you know.
Yes.
That is something, yeah.
Yeah, and so you just said that. Well, imagine the reader who are not versed in deep meditation,
Yeah,
who haven't taken any entheogens, who haven't had any paranormal experiences,
yeah,
who haven't studied all of these things that I speak about. It would literally be just like reading Chinese.
yeah,
They would know what the words meant often, if they're reasonably educated, but they wouldn't be able to fit a context to them.
yeah.
And so that's why then inexperienced people wouldn't get that much out of the book
Hmm.
because they don't have the motherboard to be able to absorb the information that I'm offering.
Yeah.
You see, when I'm speaking about, let's say, paranormal experience with an entity conversing with me, like Jehovah or Jesus, well, I mean, to the uninitiated, that's absolutely preposterous. And
Yeah.
yet, hundreds of thousands of people through thousands of years have written about those variety of experiences. And so I've got a book on my shelf, which is a very famous book by the American philosopher William James. And the book is Varieties of Religious Experiences, written early 1800s, I believe. Uh, and it's a collection of uh, very well articulated spiritual experiences by people who had lots of social standing and believability, like cardinals and pastors and, authors and, people that at the time were very well respected. Um, and they wrote about this paranormal stuff. And so when I read that book, there was one part in it which the experience that this person had was almost identical to the experience I had. And I'm like, whoa, way to go. Exactly that. It was so powerful to me to have somebody speaking about almost the exact same experience. And of course, the whole book was experiences which were similar in the paranormal, but that one was very, very similar physically to what I had. And so when we have these experiences and then we read about them, we go, yeah, I know, you know. But if we haven't had the experiences, then you read about them, you go, and they don't mean
Yeah.
anything to anybody.
Hmm.
You see, I always say this, Andre. You like the bit when I was speaking about my uh, possible demise climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. You like that because you could really relate to it.
Yeah.
And I said in that chapter, I said for those who haven't actually climbed a mountain, they could never know what I'm speaking about uh, in the full degree. People can read about people climbing Mount Everest and go, wow, that sounded really arduous and very, very difficult. But unless you know what altitude sickness is like, unless you are standing on the top of the world, um, feeling so minuscule, and your life means nothing due to the vastness of the mountain and the unforgiving world around you. You've got to feel these things.
You know, the reason I like that is because there's this excitement that it's very dangerous, and also that I am afraid of heights, you know. And I often think about, I want uh, to learn to handle that because I know where it come from. I was on my father's shoulders when I was like 5 years old. He was afraid of heights, but he walked up like a castle that was just for showing me, you know. But he was afraid all the way up, so it comes from there, you know. My
Right.
brother ain't afraid of heights or anything like that, you
Yeah.
know. So I have intentionally been staring down from high heights and so on to be better at it. I have become a little better at it, but what I would need to do is really doing something like that, climbing, not something extreme. So I have no possibility of turning back. But I have a friend. He didn't know that I was afraid of heights, so I allowed him to decide how the trip we were on mushrooms, how that trip shall go. And he started to climb mountains and stuff when he was tripping, and I was, oh, okay, he does that, I do that, but I don't like it, you know. I like it, but I don't like it in a way, you know.
Yeah.
I can't look down. I just must focus on every grab I take like that, you know.
Yeah.
Then being on a mushrooms at the same time is like crazy.
So when you say mountains, I mean you was out in nature, and then there was some rocks or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're a decent height, so to speak.
Yeah. Because if you're going to be taking mushrooms
Yeah,
next to a mountain or in the mountains,
yeah,
then it's very likely that you're going to be walking up them or doing something in them. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like look, it's kind of like going to one of these huge theme fairs where they've got roller coaster and all that sort of thing. If you go, oh, let's go to this theme fair and take some psychedelics, well, it wouldn't be no big surprise if somebody wanted to go on them. Let's go on it, see what it's like when we're tripping. Really, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. In a way, but my natural inclination isn't to climb
no.
such a stuff, you know.
Mm,
Um, so he didn't know that at all about me. So we were sitting on the mountain later on in the sun, and was just talking and looking at nature, and a lot of symbolism came to the mind while doing that, and so on.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Next line here is on the same page, 458, and it's about propaganda and state propaganda and stuff like that, and cultural indoctrination and such a thing. The most remarkable feat in human psychology these days is unraveling and respooling the mass of information that we have been indoctrinated with from early childhood. The issue of unhappiness and discontentment in life primarily revolves around our specific cultural programming. That programming has vastly narrowed down our originally beautiful inquiring minds into a base, unquestioning receiver of bytes of information, which our governing cultural wizards have hypnotized us into believing as true, correct, and acceptable to the point where if we fail to comply and fall in line with everyone else, we will be attacked for our non-conformity, even by our friends and families, let alone strangers. The most disturbing effect of this indoctrination is that on many occasions we are even prepared to put our lives on the line to defend any of the multifacets of it, i.e., by going to war, as I have labored in a previous chapter. Belief is an exceedingly powerful manipulation tool. Propaganda is wielded over us from the cradle to the grave. It comes in various varieties, from the threatening to the subliminal. Yeah,
So in that paragraph, what I'm basically saying is that we've been fed a narrative,
yeah,
and that is now our world,
yeah. The
or
childhood.
most people's worlds. But you see, when we wake up, we realize, hang on, what the fuck? None of that's true. And we realize that we've been fed a crock of shit. And then we go on to discover the world in many, many different ways because we're outside. The bubble's been broke, popped. The hypnosis spell doesn't work anymore. You know, we can see with our own eyes and hear with our own ears. And, you know, have you seen that film? It's called They Live
Yes, yes, I have.
with
Yeah,
the sunglasses.
yeah,
Yeah, so this guy, he finds this box of sunglasses, and
yeah,
by putting one pair on because it was a bit sunny, he discovered that he could see all the real, true message behind the propaganda.
yeah,
And so then he was trying to get other people to put these glasses on, and they were like, "Fuck you! I ain't putting those fucking bullshit glasses on." It's very much like the idea of Plato's cave. You know,
yeah,
one guy escapes from the cave, and then he comes back and says, "Hey, you know, there's a whole world out there. Fuck you with your bullshit world." You know, people they're not receptive to it.
yeah,
And so when we wake up, we look around and we see that everybody is fast asleep.
yeah,
Well, it really is quite something, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, I have seen that pretty early on in my life, um, but it's a different grades of it, you know. I mean, I in school I was like I didn't care about this or the other, you know. I was just at class to mess around a little bit, you know,
Yeah, me
and
too.
then
So I did.
so 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 there wasn't much I took seriously in school. Um, so by that I was already outcast in a way,
Yeah,
uh, and also started to look into other stuff already when I was 17 when it comes to all the political stuff and such a thing, who's the ruling class and so on of
yeah.
this society,
Mm,
um, um, and who's running the media and so on. So, and also that I had a supernatural experience as well when I was a lot younger as well, you know.
right.
But but it's different grades of the waking up, you know, because maybe I woke a little bit around 2010 when I started reading more of self-development book and also meditating a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I also could see that well, there were you could get into certain states while meditating and so on. It took
Yeah.
a long while until I ever took any antigens. It was in the end of 2016 I took antigens for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So of course that vastly shifts the perspective. So yeah, and also that uh, people slip into depression because of some people or many people because it's a meaningless wheel that's only spinning, you know,
Yeah.
and they don't know themselves and so on.
Yeah.
So I guess
And
that's also part of it.
yeah, lots of people they need to slip into this depression before they wake up.
Yeah,
That was the case with me.
yeah,
Um,
same here.
to get thrown um, out of the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah,
You get thrown out of the wheel, and then you just lie there, dumbfounded, staring at the world for several years, and
yeah.
then you start to read stuff and watch stuff, and slowly, yeah, you put pieces together. I had a couple of very profound experiences, which showed me that human consciousness was very, very strange. And one of them was when I was younger, about 28 years old, I went to Australia with the mother of my daughter, who wasn't born yet. And we spent 1 year around Australia and had a wonderful time. And our daughter was conceived there. And
Mm.
when we came back and we moved into our own home, and one day I was in the loft and I was looking through some old bags, in the loft there, and I found this bag of stuff I collected from around Australia. And within the bag was the old number plate of the car that we travelled 13,000 miles around Australia. There was some surfboard wax, and there was a bottle of coconut suntan lotion. And I remembered one particular day when we was on Bondi Beach, the most famous beach in Australia, uh, and we used that particular oil. And I took the top off and I smelt it, and instantly my consciousness just was back there on Bondi Beach. All of a sudden, there was a brightness in my mind, and I could hear all the people because it was a very busy beach, and I
Yeah.
could smell this coconut and feel the heat, and it was kind of like, wow, fuck, that was a portal back in time.
Mm.
You really can take these things that take you back. And you see, later on, I learned from neuroscience that people who have operations on their brain, if their brains are probed electronically, then people can remember things that they'd never ever thought they'd remembered from many years ago, just as clear as a day. So everything was in there. And that's when I knew that everything I've ever done is in there somewhere.
Mm.
And so that was really shocking for me. And there was another occasion that I remembered I was going to say that. Let me just see if I can recall that. Um, Maybe it'll come later, but very similar. Oh, this is what it was. I was reading a Dr. Phil self-help book, all right, and this was when I was kind of like, I was with this girl. I'd been with a long time. It wasn't the mother of my daughter. It was much later. I was kind of having a midlife crisis. I didn't know what I wanted out of life. I think I was about 40 or 45, and the classic age, you know. And I was reading this Dr. Phil book, and he said, "Look, what I want to do. I want to do two things. I want to ask you first and foremost, what was the most memorable, beautiful, positive experience you had in your life? And then I want to ask you which was the most negative." And so he said, "Get a pen and paper, and I want you to write it down." And you know, writing things down, Andre, is very, very powerful. Like when you
Yeah.
have dreams, you have to write them down. And if you want to create something, you write them down. This is why
Yeah.
we make business plans and we keep journals and things like
Yeah.
that. So the first question was, what was the most beautiful, positive memory? And it's kind of like, oh, well, I remember when me and my elder brother, we was at children's homes, and this was the last children's home that we went to. We've been in children's homes about 5 years, and our dad had just bought a new house, and he was doing it up. And at the weekends, we used to go and stay with him, and there's no carpets. It was all floorboards, and you know, there's a lot of building work going on. But you know, we had a mattress, and you know, we'd spend the weekend there. We enjoyed that. And I remember we used to have to walk about 2 miles. And I was like 8 years old at the time, and my brother was 10. And this road was just a country road with no path at all. And so it was a beautiful spring day, hot day with butterflies and bees. And I was full of excitement because I was going to my dad's house, you know. My dad had
Yeah.
finally got a house and he's going to get the family back together. And it was the most beautiful and wonderful feeling. And it took me straight back. And again, I was there.
Mm.
And then I thought, wow, this is really powerful. And then the question was to write down the most horrendous. And so I started to think, well, what's the most horrendous thing? And what he says, start counting down the years, you know, and let's say I was 45. I went, 45, no, 40. What happened when I was 40? No. And but I went all through the years and I got down to, you know, when I was 4 years old. And all of a sudden, poof, I had projectile tears squirt out my eyes like on a cartoon. I went into some sort of shock. I was hyperventilating. And I was like, and what happened is I was transported back in time to the morning I walked down the stairs in our house because we heard a lot of commotion very early in the morning. And downstairs there were policemen and the ambulance people, and my mother was lying dead on the floor.
Mm.
And I was back there. And
Mm.
wow, you see, I'd never really cried about that because I always just pushed it aside because it was too painful. But it
Mm.
confronted me with such a power that I had no choice but to let it all come out. 41 years of kempt up sorrow, sadness, and all the rest of it. And since then, I thought, well, I'm going to get interested in psychology because this stuff is really, really powerful. And
Yeah.
so, for those people listening to those stories now, some people may have their own stories and you know have had flashbacks, feeling absolutely present, you know, many, many years before. And so, you know, if I speak about certain things like that in the book, and people have had such experiences like out of body experiences, you know, all this sort of thing, then they can relate to it 100% more, you know, than if they never had any experience.
Yeah. Mm. It started me to think about my different experiences. What is the best and what is the like absolute worst? Yeah,
But
the
you have to
best,
think about it long, um,
long
and
and hard. Yeah.
you have to regress yourself, you
Yeah.
know.
from a
So
certain state of mind, yeah, where
yes, you
you
have to be in a very,
calm
very
down.
chilled, meditative state, and you start counting back the years, just like flicking through a scrapbook. You go
Yeah,
back week after week, month after month, and then year after year, and then slowly, oh, you'll come upon something. It's magic how it works. When you take
hmm,
yourself back there in your mind to that year, that week, and month, and whoa, you're there again.
yeah.
Whew. So then
Hmm,
um, I learned how to meditate, and then I took a hypnotherapy course of how we regress ourselves and how we regress our patients, because we need to go back into our patients' history to find the root of their issues.
yeah. Hmm.
And it can be very, very distressing, of course. But you see, we was taught this for two reasons. One, to find the root of a person's neurosis, and another reason so we could go back and we could change it. For instance, there was one story that was told to us in one of these hypnosis therapy classes um, about a woman who was there, and she was actually teaching the class, and she said when she was younger, her mother died when she was about 14, and she never told her mother how much she loved her because she had kind of a lot of resentment about how the mother had been, because she'd been very ill and very negative, and it caused a lot of stress in the family. And so the daughter um, just allowed the mother to pass without any articulation. But she was so very, very distressed about that because she had a conscience about it and a deep, deep regret. Uh, so then she went on a hypnotherapy course herself, and that's why she became an instructor. And somebody took her back through regression to the time when she was sitting at her mother's deathbed, and she told her that how much she loved her and how she'd always enjoyed her life with her and all these wonderful things. And then she let her go, came out of the hypnosis, and then, that issue was never a thing anymore.
Hmm. That's interesting. I have no experience of hypnosis or anything like that, um, but I have played around with the thought of changing the inner world and what happened and so on, and go back in time, in my mind.
Right.
But that has been in a very uh, yeah, the level where I don't know hypnosis.
Yes. But you can still do it in your mind if you turn back the pages, like lying in bed when you're not that tired, and then you can just casually turn back the pages and go back to when you did something, and then you can recreate a scenario of something how you wanted it to be.
Yeah,
And, that's pretty effective. That's pretty effective, even without being under deep hypnosis.
doing it one time or doing it by
Yeah,
repetition.
yeah, doing it several times,
Yeah,
until you feel comfortable that, you're happy with it.
interesting. Yeah, there was another thing in what was written in this long uh, underlinings, and that was how friends and family members could ostracize one because one had a certain perspective or something like that. I think I made it very well there because I gone not even thinking about people being like that when I was younger, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably never realized that people pushed me aside on such a thing, you know. If
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the you know who's, I would do that even if that meant that I wouldn't get a certain job or something. I didn't care. I just talk whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a certain period in life where I was the most not myself. And it
Mm-hmm.
was between 2012 until 2014, I realized, but what am I doing? That's not really me, because I was playing into the system in a bit, you know. Yeah, I was still had the unique facets of pushing boundaries and so on, but still, I lost myself on the way, you know.
Mm. So,
So no, probably I wasn't the uh, absolutely no NPC or anything like that, you know. I still had my principles in check and all that, but I did it for work,
you got
you
sucked
know.
in a little bit to the Matrix.
Yeah, sucked in a little too much to the
Yeah.
matrix, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that was under a few years only.
Yeah.
Um, the next underlining is on page 459. Instinctively, there is a deep rooted fear within governments and states, etc., of the free thinking odd man out, for he is an unquantifiable anomaly with the potential to become anything at any moment. So his spirit must ultimately be crushed. Yeah, he's like a sleepwalker, so to speak. And also, if a person like that has a strong mind, he certainly needs to be crushed, because the strong ones needs to be teared down also, I think.
Yeah, so when we look at the measures of control that they're doing now, and they're starting under the so-called auspice of protecting people from hate speech, but their agenda is to crush free speech. That's what it's
Yeah,
all about. So they start from a reasonable vantage where most people will be in agreement, and they will take more and more and more of people's freedoms away until in the end you wake up one morning and realize that you've actually got no fucking free speech at all, because they've done it so surreptitiously. And this is why they cancel and block and, they go after people who are uh, speaking so called truth. And throughout millennia, governments have killed such people.
yeah,
They used to, just kill them for being political dissidents, um, for inciting this, that, and the other. When they were just dictatorships or communist or whatever. But now we're supposed to be much more liberal and democratic. Well, they can't very easily go around killing people, albeit they do it, and they will do it as a last resort. But now it's much more simple to cancel people and to defame people and just to blacklist them and just to spread misinformation. So people, no longer listen to them. And yeah, this is going on. It's always been going on. People who point out the failings of the state have always been very, very dangerous to the state.
yeah,
Um, and so you know, we have to be very conscious about this, in this day and age, what we're saying, because what we have to know is that nothing is going unrecorded anymore.
Yes, and the
Uh,
satellites is going up as
Yeah,
well.
every one of my videos, whatever I've been said, they've flagged whatever they wanted to flag. They've profiled me, and they're ghosting me, and that they know what I'm about. And somewhere there'll be a file on Chat GTP which tells them exactly what my philosophies are. Or at least if they haven't got that, then they've got the potential to call on it whenever they want to. You see.
Yeah.
You see, because now everybody's got all this information. They do things like this just to try to see. They ask if a certain person, they ask ChatGPT if a certain person has a propensity towards violence or something like that. They'll search the whole of the world's internet for any inkling into that, and then they'll come
Mm.
up with whatever they've got.
Mm.
So they can do it now. Can you imagine how good they're going to be at doing this in 50 years? And
Yeah.
they will have people for things they said and did 20, 30 years ago. They'll have no
Yeah.
bones about that. They're already doing that now. They're already taking people to prison for things they did, in the past.
Yeah. And also all the when the Chinese system, like the system which they have in China, where they have cameras everywhere and so on, will even be more high tech in a while, and it will be spread over Europe when all Bill Gates satellites is going up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I was speaking in one of my videos today saying that, or was it yesterday? I think it's probably yesterday. I'm thinking that the Minority Report, the movie,
Yeah.
that isn't going to be science fiction within the next decade. I would have thought
Yeah.
they're going to start um, implementing that sort of thing because the psychological profiling. Of course, how they'll use it initially is like with terrorism and things like that, which is very feasible and it's reasonable if like the special forces know that there are terrorist factions, but they just haven't caught them yet. So, well, they don't want to catch them after they've killed 1,000 people. So they will catch them on the Minority Report. They will catch them for 100 reasons. You, as a member of this terrorist organization, you said this to this terrorist. You wrote this, and you did this, and you did that. We've got every reason to believe from your profile that it's only a matter of time before you did an act of terrorism. So we're sentencing you to life imprisonment. Now, with terrorists, which or members of terrorism organizations, when you know that that's what they're going to do, it's not fucking kindergarten. These places, they're deadly serious about it. So when you
Yeah.
know that what they're like, well, I don't think it's unreasonable to convict them for crimes of the future.
Yeah. Mm.
And of
Yeah.
course, I was going to say, well, of course, they'll start with the terrorism because everybody will be in agreement with it. And then they'll
Yeah.
slowly creep up the ladder until in the end, it's just some, milkman on his round that one day raped this woman because he used to look on the dark web and he used to enjoy watching rape videos. And then he used to buy buy these magazines, from the dark web with, all different sorts of, all this sadomasochism stuff.
Yeah.
And if you profile someone, you know, and there's such an enormous amount of stuff, well, it seems that they're a ticking bomb, and I think there's good reason to take these people out of society. And people may be thinking that's extreme, but you see, if well, when what we know about certain murderers, if we had a profile on Jeffrey Dahmer, uh, how sick he was as a kid, right?
Jeffrey Dahmer, who's
Yeah, mass murderer
yeah,
in
okay.
America.
Hmm.
Well, I think he was gay, and I think he used to have sex with his victims when they were dead, things like that.
Hmm.
Um, but if there was a profile on him, people, the computer, the quantum computer, must have been able to see it coming. The computers will be able to see stuff coming.
Yeah.
And so, it could often be a tragic, shocking travesty
Hmm.
when somebody who hasn't actually perpetrated a crime gets the same sentence as if they did. But judging from their profile, um, let's say before a jury of like 50 people, if you had a jury of 50 people and you needed 40 of them to convict, well, you've got 40, maybe psychoanalysts or something like this, um, who are qualified to assess the data.
Hmm.
Hmm. Anyway, we're going far into the future, man.
Yeah. So next page is a 460. When we are out walking in nature with friends or family, and we point to these little sparks of awe inspiring beauty that captivate our newfound state of consciousness. Yes, because that is a certain thing. There is a certain colorful bird I've seen in deforestation area here.
Just let me interject here because you're only halfway through that sentence. Because what I say in the end is when you
Yeah,
point out these beautiful things, um, and the person you're with just passes it off
yeah,
without having any impact at all.
yeah,
And you say to yourself, there's no point in me pointing this out because, all of the videos I've made, my nature videos, you know the sort of things I point out.
yeah,
And some people really love those things and they go, wow, I've never looked at nature like that before. Now you've
yeah,
opened my eyes. And other people will just go, so what? Because it
yeah,
doesn't touch them. They've got no soul, you see.
yeah. But because there is a certain facet to it, and just a week ago I came into this perfect state again, where I was standing at the tree, and I said, "Wow," you know. But it has been less. I come into those state of mind nowadays.
Right.
That's also people have mentioned mushrooms, entheogens, and such a things. And every time I heard it mentioned, I felt like I need to take that, you know. So it's
Yes.
probably time soon. But there is this interesting details at certain trees where you can say layers of birch over each other like that, and
Hmm.
it's some certain trees that have it, you know.
Yeah. Is
uh,
it called a London plane?
I don't know what
Are
it's
they like a
called.
camouflage tree? The bark
Yeah,
is very
yeah,
Yeah, the bark is very smooth, and then it's mostly sort of a creamy white color, and then you've got
yeah,
greens and browns, and you can peel them off.
yeah. And sometimes it's many layers, you know.
Yes.
And I stood looking at those trees when I was on the mushrooms one time as well, and it was like amazing. And still, when I look at those trees today, I still find it very interesting. This
So the bark, does it look like a pair of camo pants?
yeah,
Yes. Okay. So next time you see one, they've got very, very big leaves. The leaves will be about this big. In actual fact, oh, here's one.
is that? Ah, okay. I will see.
Uh,
because in my mind I saw something else on the leaf, you know. But but it sounds like it is one of those trees, yeah.
yeah, so it's called a London plane, and if it does have big leaves like that, then that's what it is. But
Yeah,
yeah, okay. So uh, yeah, what were you saying?
yeah, uh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
I
that look
was,
the smaller things that people mostly don't notice or appreciate.
yeah, yeah, because there's a certain bird which I have seen many times, you know. Uh, but it started a couple of years ago. But I've seen it about maybe 10 times, you know. You
Hmm.
don't see it very often still, but it's very fast, it's colorful, doesn't look like it pertains to Sweden, you know.
Yep.
It's like this size, you know. It has a pretty big head, and it has a long beak like this, and it's like turquoise, it's orange, and maybe a bit of white in it as well, and some other color, you know.
Right.
So it's look very tropical in a way.
Yeah, it might be a bee
So,
catcher.
okay, it eat fish.
No, it looks like a kingfisher,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's a bee called a bee catcher. They've got the long, pointy beak. They've got pretty similar colorings to the kingfisher.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very fast. Have you seen one of those?
No, I've only seen them in books.
Okay, but they are native to England as well.
Yeah, very, very rare though.
Yeah,
I think they're a very shy bird. They dwell around rivers and pastures and places like that. Of course, feeding on bees and flying insects and things like that.
yeah. But because I pointed at it to my mother, look, there it is, there it is. When it's sitting on like a branch or
Yeah,
something, and
right.
she couldn't see it, you know. And
Ah,
I seen it about 10 times, and I
yeah.
pointed to a friend, he couldn't see it either, you know.
You tuned.
But
You
I
tuned.
see,
Yeah, because
yeah,
you've seen it lots before, you tuned into it, and so you knew exactly what you was looking for,
yeah,
whereby they didn't know what they were looking for, and so they couldn't distinguish it from the
yeah,
rest of the background, you know?
yeah,
But, the Jews, in Jewish Kabbalah, they call these things, holy sparks. And
yes,
when we see something which strikes us to our core, and it appears to be very, very meaningful, and it makes you realize that there is a God, because it seems like you're communicating with God at that moment, with the universe, with the intelligence of the cosmos. Because the cosmos, when you wake up, it speaks to you and it shows you all these things, and it's like it's showing off, and it gives you more the more you appreciate, and it's a real phenomenological thing. It's actually very bizarre. It's like when you wake up, the universe will start to give you synchronicities.
yeah. I need to get in tune with this sparks again, you know.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, because like I said before, there would be more underlined in certain subjects if I was in a certain state of mind. Uh,
I write about the Jewish sparks further on in the book.
yeah, I know you talked about it in videos in the past many years ago as
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
yeah,
and I know I could relate to it back then also. You know.
hmm,
So I need to get in touch with it more again. You know,
yeah,
I think I have had a bit distractions in my life lately, even
yes,
though I'm in tune. You know,
yeah.
so yeah,
But also, what you need to do is you need to spend quite a lot of time alone in nature,
yes, yes, you're right about that. Yeah,
because we need to be alone mostly. for our mind to become absolutely absorbed in the natural world. And
Yeah,
then when you have cleared your mind of all the bullshit and you are absorbed in the natural world, then the cosmos will show you things.
yeah. So here's on page 461. So we need to be careful and not allow our newly found expanse of a consciousness to look derogatorily upon others who as yet still have the scales over their eyes. It is challenging for us newly awakened ones to have patience with those who still cannot see, but we become more understanding and patient in time. Yeah,
You see, when we wake up initially, everything
yeah,
is so awe inspiring and thrilling to us that we want to try to engage everybody around us. But
yeah,
the more the years pass by and the more disappointment we suffer because they don't get it. And you can fall out with them, and this is why we change our friends and our social groups because we're living in a different world. We are living in a physically and mentally different world when we wake up. And it's quite astounding because you could have a group of friends which you remember doing all this stuff, different stuff with, and you're feeling very close and everything, and you never really thought about the things like you do now. But now you can't think of anything else except all this new stuff, and you don't want to do anything with the old stuff. Like you may go to football or you go to the pubs with your mates, and you just smoke some weed with them and talk shit, whatever stuff like that. You just don't want to do it anymore.
no, no, that feels very useless in all way.
Mm.
um, to just spend the time for fun.
Yeah, we don't want to do it anymore, do we? So my younger sister, one of her gripes with me was that I'd gone serious and I don't have fun anymore. And I'm like, well, depends what you call fun. I'm ecstatic every single day, but I'm not jumping around drunk, laughing and clowning around. And I'm not telling jokes and laughing at jokes and shit like that. That
Yeah,
sort of crap that you used to do, when you're younger, fooling around. No. Um, yeah, things have got more serious, but there's much more beauty and joy to be extracted than any of that claptrap that we used to engage with.
yeah, yeah. I have a thought to myself. I'm not into fun, but when I'm having fun, I have really fun.
Hmm.
It's like if I can take psychedelics or entheogens very seriously when I take it. But maybe in between there's all kinds of emotion. Maybe I cry, maybe I laugh. I hysterically can start to laugh at certain times also,
Yeah, right.
all kinds of emotion can pop up on that kind of stuff. So I have if I have fun, I have immensely more fun than anybody, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Only I'm not aiming for fun.
No. Yeah, I mean, I've never had any funny moments when I've been taking mushrooms. Never. I just don't have those experiences. And people used to say to me, "Oh, I'll do mushrooms with you." I'm like, why would anybody do mushrooms with anybody? Because we all go off on our different worlds.
Yeah,
And so if people start having a bad trip or a good trip, whatever they're doing, they're going to distract you from yours and they're going to draw you into their experience. Well, their experience is their experience. When you're
yeah,
taking mushrooms, it's about your experience.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
I remember one of the early days I did mushrooms with Paul. And, I don't think I'd ever do any entheogens with anybody again because I don't like it. Um, of course, Paul's psyche is very different to mine.
yeah,
Now, we took these mushrooms, and it was, like I don't know, suppose 2 grams or something like that. It wasn't a lot. And I just started holding trees and mesmerized at the light flickering in the trees. And I held a tree and I felt like I was a tree swaying in the wind and all this different sorts of stuff. And he was all in here,
mm,
um, you know, and he was fighting his dead parents and his dead brother, with some sort of Darth Vader laser beams, and they were annoying him and pestering him, and he had to stab them to make them go away. And I'm like, wow,
yeah,
fucking hell. We had different trips, man.
yeah,
But it depends what's in your psyche, you see, because you just get an accentuation of what's in your psyche.
yeah. Because I'm a very expressive when I take an antigen.
Mm.
Extremely talkative, extremely expressive.
Wow.
Um, then I have a friend which I've taken it a lot with. I preferably like to take it by my own.
Mm.
But it seems he has many times hold me as a safe center, because I know how to guide myself through a trip and so on.
Mm.
He has hold on to certain ways I do it, like breathe in, breathe out, and uh, this too will pass and so on, because I talk to myself when I trip and so on.
Right. Mm.
So when it gets tense, I just don't resist. I let it go,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
I realize most people get caught in loops and all that kind of stuff. I never got caught in any loops.
No.
Yeah, because you shouldn't have resistance if it's creepy or if it's uh, beautiful or whatever. You just
Yeah, you
let
just
it
gotta
move
go with the
on.
flow, man, because if you try and fight this shit, well, you end up in hell.
Yeah. So yeah, I do preferably like to do it on my own, even if I had done it with others as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't talk a lot when you're on it.
Nope. Um, uh,
Okay.
well, I'm on my own. I don't talk to myself out loud, but I have internal dialogue. But it's a very solemn affair.
Yeah.
Whenever I take mushrooms, this is why I don't know whether I'll ever take them again. I suppose I will, but I don't like the solemnness of a mushroom experience. I much prefer uh, the the complete mind obliteration, the ego obliteration on DMT, and absolute awe for a solid 5 minutes, and then about 10 minutes afterglow. And sometimes you can have the beautiful dopamine flushing through your brain for an hour or two after. Um, that suits my personality. I want it hard and I want it short.
Yeah.
I don't
Uh,
want to be in this dreamlike state which drains your energy for about 10 hours, man.
yeah. Yeah. I also like the DMT. Uh, Ketamine was also a favorite for a while.
Yeah.
I did like K holes like 3 or 4 times in a row in a day, like that's really tiring to do so many K-holes. But
Yeah.
it's so fascinating because it's just feels like you're sucked into the void, you know, and
Mm.
that you're flying around, being everything, and it's so amazing. Yeah,
Yeah. I've never tried that. I've got some here and I'm going to do it one day.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is three different sorts of ketamine. There
Ah,
is R isomer, and there is S isomer. Then there's racemic, which is a combination of both.
right.
So the other one has more psychedelic facets to it, while the other one has a more heavy weight to it. But both are psychedelic if you take
Yeah.
them, but a little different feel to them both. And the other one is balanced between the both different.
And how long does the trip last for?
Yeah, maybe an hour, maybe 1.5
Mm,
at its maximum, you know.
yeah. And
So
what's the feeling like?
it's like you can't feel your body. Uh, you, uh, yeah, one time it can be a bit fuzzy, you know. One time I could move my body, you know, but I've taken so much that I even could move a pinky finger either, you know.
Right.
But when I couldn't move my body, I thought to myself, wonder if I'm dead. Then I put my hand on my heart to see if it was still uh,
Beating.
pumping
Yeah.
blood, yeah, beating. So that's a pretty, pretty comic.
So what's the psyche feel like? Does it feel pleasant? Does it feel dreamy? Is there any ego there? Is there any fear there at all?
Pleasant, but I have felt actually a kind of fear on it as well. Maybe that's not the first thing you feel on it, but it's like, oh, wonder if I do something wrong now, I will be slit to pieces or something like that, you know. Or what if a meteor comes and smash down right now? Maybe some weird stuff like that. So you can be very fussy in your mind. So let's say you would write something or something like that. If you had to take the amount where you can still write something,
Mm-hmm.
and you read it later on, you would only see it. What was I thinking there? You know,
Mm.
because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it still is very therapeutic, I think.
Mm.
and and I like to have the music in my ears when I do it. So I do a playlist, often with some music that I never heard before, and so
Right.
on, just because then it becomes a surprise to me, you know. And
Mm.
the mind start to create things in relation to the music, you know.
Yeah.
It's and you things sound so different when
Mm.
you're on it, and so on, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'll let you know how that goes when I do it.
Yeah. So on page 466, yeah, page 466, the renowned physicist Neil deGrasse Tyson has recently stated that we need to be very cautious in denouncing a creator, given how little we know as a species. He said that collectively, physicists can only lay claim to even beginning to understand 4% of the cosmos. He inferred that it just might be that in the other 96% we might one day find God. Yeah, might one day find God. We might one day find God. In a way, I feel it's a bit preposterous in a way, because he's also say we. Yeah, well, people have found God for all ages.
Yeah.
So it's just turning scientism into a religion.
Yes, but because he is a scientist, he's a cosmologist, isn't he? And
Yeah,
because he's steeped in all that stuff, then he's always talking about we, the scientific fraternity, we might one day find God. Well, I write in the book that we may have already found what could constitute God in like entheogens, because entheogen, the word means God within you. So whenever you
yeah,
take an entheogen, you have God within you. So you could say you found God in these entheogens. Now, uh, when we take DMT and we have a massive influx of dopamine, because DMT, the molecule, is almost identical to dopamine, uh, you feel so wonderful. Everything is absolutely so beautiful and perfect. Uh, that could very well be God. And so I speak about that in one chapter, and I don't know whether you've gone over that chapter or not, but I'm saying that intuition is the language of God. Um, DMT could very well be a portal into God, if not God. Because when we look through history and we look at all
yeah,
the stories in the Bible, well, it seems to me, and it seems to many other people, like Dr. Rick Strassman, he wrote this book, DMT, the spirit molecule. And
yeah,
then he wrote a sequel to that. And I forget what the sequel was titled, but basically what he did was he looked at all of the biblical stories which could be attributed to entheogens, like all the seeing God in the sky and the burning bush, and the stick turning into snake, and Jesus walking on water, and all these sort of things. Because when you take these entheogens, all different sorts of things happen.
yeah,
And these supernatural things could very well be attributed to entheogens. And if that's the case, then throughout all these years, we've been sold a ruse because God was in the substance what they were taking.
yeah.
And when I took DMT and saw God in the clouds, well, I rest my case, where many of those biblical stories came from.
Mm, yeah,
So what I'm saying is that scientists, it, it could be a chemical. They could find this chemical, and that I write in the book also. There is uh, a section on this thing called the God helmet,
yeah,
and this God helmet is it gives an electronic sort of I don't know impulses and things like that, and it can make people think of spiritual encounters. It can, make them have an out of body experience. And so they've called it the God helmet because of these phenomena which take place. And so, if scientists refine their technique and they can put it on people's heads, and the vast majority of people have these religious experiences, then you can say, well, God is some sort of chemical reaction or neurological reaction in the brain. And
yeah.
I don't discount that because I believe everything is within consciousness. And so all the experiences I've had where I felt like the presence of a beautiful cosmic mother, um, they've been a cerebral thing.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Through breathing exercises, through entheogens, through meditation. When you change the state of mind, when you change the state of mind, then that's when you're going to go into this territory.
Mhm.
the spiritual territory.
Yeah. Yeah, there's many thoughts that pop up, you know. I can think about it like everything is consciousness like you do. And I do think about it that way many times.
Hmm.
But I could also think about it like, well, it might be in another way, you know, because I never know.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't feel it
Yeah,
uh, in every vessel of your body, then it's only an idea to you. An
yeah,
idea is an idea and an idea and an idea. And everybody's got
yeah,
ideas, and we could read 1,000 ideas, and we would be fair to say, I don't know. But if you've
yeah,
had these experiences where you have absolutely felt like you are a part of the all, which is God, well, you don't look any further. You know.
yeah. But if you slip out from it again, you know.
Well, you slip out from it, but you don't forget that.
Hmm.
So now I know, yeah, I took DMT 200 times and, mushrooms 100 times. And uh, so I've had these experiences a lot. Um, and every time I take DMT, it's very, very similar in that you just go into another world. And it's, well, if you can have encounters with other worlds by just taking a substance, well, surely you can encounter God by just taking a substance. And many people have, verified this.
Yeah,
And, myself included. And then, when I'd been in this 432 meditation for an hour, I came out and then I had Jesus speaking to me, and I saw Jesus in that mural behind me.
yeah,
When you've had such visceral things, which it was the most real thing you've ever experienced, you have to go, well, that's the thing. That is
yeah.
actually a thing. I don't know what it was, but it's a thing. Could have
Hmm.
been
Yeah,
Jesus. I don't know.
yeah. So the next underline on the same page is for 466. Uh, Buddhists and philosophers for millennia have concurred that consciousness is fundamental. Meanwhile, a good number of scientists are chasing their tails when looking for the fundamental properties of the cosmos with a myopic vision of something that they think is exterior to themselves. Yeah. So they are, yeah, they are chasing something that people have seen for millennia already being there. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is with scientists, they're looking, 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 looking. But they never stop to study that thing which is looking. That thing which is looking is consciousness.
Yeah.
Because they haven't a single clue what consciousness is, they don't bother to study it. Where do you begin? Where do you begin in a supposed physical world with something which isn't physical? It isn't actually of this world. So they don't bother. And so, therefore, every single thing they do is flawed because they are looking for something, but they don't know that which is looking for it. And so they couldn't discount that that which they are looking uh, for is the thing which is looking, because everything is within consciousness. And what we are looking at, molecules, atoms, and this, that, and the other, on the one hand, scientists tell us that they don't exist. And yet we still keep looking for things with microbes and, cells in the human body and, all this different sorts of stuff. Because even though quantum physicists tell us that it's all Maya, well, it's a very persistent one. It's a very complex one, and it's a very intriguing one. And so they keep looking, looking, looking. But they're looking at themselves. They're not looking at anything outside of themselves. They're looking at facets of themselves. Because everything that they're looking at, they think's out there, is all in here. Every single bit of it is in here.
Yes, it's like you have said in our previous conversation, where we look at the cosmos and we look at the neurons in a brain going off. It's the same, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've seen that pictures too. It's like, yeah, very telling, so to speak.
Yeah, if you imagine a sentient projector or a conscious projector, and the projector is projecting a movie on a screen, and the projector says to itself, "What is all that stuff over there? Oh, we must investigate all those colours and all those patterns and this, that, and the other." Well, it's you. You're
Yeah,
projecting it. It's coming from you, the projector. And that's what we're doing. We project onto the blank screen of the cosmos.
yeah,
And you see, all these things, they can be very readily proven by scientists. It's not difficult to do.
yeah. But it's an incessant proving of things all the time. I feel it's yeah, it's ego driven in a way, you know. It's like they some kind of insecurity. I feel it must be like, because they want there to exist something, so they are searching for it, because they don't feel right inside if there isn't any absolute truth to
Yeah,
everything, you know.
yeah. But, when we have certain experiences, near death experience, a very, very deep meditative experience, an entheogenic experience, whereby you exit the body, you exit consciousness, and then your consciousness comes back online, and you go, well, where was I before? Because I had awareness. I was aware. I didn't die. There was something going on. I couldn't see the world, I couldn't experience anything, but I was aware of awareness. And then I open my eyes and I see the world and I can feel the world and all that.
Yeah,
On one occasion, when I was down in Portugal and Patrick was down there with me, he showed me how to do this thing that kids generally do for the laugh, and you get your palms like this,
yeah,
and you squeeze the carotid artery, and the person who's having the carotid artery compromised is breathing in very, very deeply. So you do that while someone's pumping the carotid artery, and then eventually you pass out. And then when you come to, your awareness comes online first, 2 or 3 seconds before your consciousness. And when your awareness comes on, the world is the most incredible, beautiful, peaceful place. And then your consciousness comes on, and it's kind of like, oh, I'm Aaron. I'm on the beach. I'm on the world. I just did this thing that made me go unconscious. So what I'm
uh,
saying is, when we are unconscious, there isn't an ego to spoil our day. And
yeah,
that's when we are absolutely in a blissful state, our natural state. It's the ego which is the root of all evil.
yeah.
And so that's just a brain agency. Take the ego away, what are we? We don't have any sentience, do we?
Yeah.
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 So it's the ego which is which is creating everything.
Yeah. So on page 473, and what you discover as you read the Gospels of Thomas, which you're meant to discover, is that you and Jesus, at the deep level, are identical twins, and that you discover that you are the child of God, just as He is. You know, and further on here, on the same page, he talks. You talk more about this. These are the secret words which the living Jesus spoke, and the twin Didymus, Judas, Thomas, wrote them down. Then there follows a list of the saying of Jesus. Now this raised all kinds of questions. Did Jesus have a twin brother? Actually, the name Thomas Didymus,
Didymus.
well, Didymus,
Didymus.
Didymus,
Yeah.
yeah, but well, Thomas is Hebrew for twin. Yeah, that's something you never hear that Jesus would have a twin brother, you know, and probably Christians would denounce that because that's not what they have been taught, even if it's in plain sight. If you look at it like you have done,
Yeah.
and so on, you know.
Yeah.
Isn't there another part where somebody told me that Jesus wasn't a very uncommon name back in the days either, you know?
Well, Jesus wasn't a Jewish name.
Uh,
So he could never have been called Jesus. Apparently, his name was Yeshua.
yes, exactly.
Yeshua ban Joseph.
Yeah,
Um, and so, Jesus just means the Messiah,
yeah,
or Christ, the Messiah.
yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it's kind of like Jesus, the Messiah. Um, or, I'm just going to see the etymology of Jesus, just to make sure. Um, Jesus meaning. Jesus meaning in Hebrew. The name Jesus comes from the Hebrew name Yeshua, okay, which means God saves. The name Yeshua is based on the Semitic root, which means to deliver or to rescue. So if you see that just states that it couldn't have been his name because Jesus means to save or to rescue. Well, Jesus is reputed to be the savior, the person that does the saving and the rescuing. So it wasn't his name; it was a label stuck on him,
Hmm.
just like the Christ. So Jesus the Christ. So he wasn't called Jesus Christ. Yeshua Ben Joseph, just some dude, some Gnostic, and that's what the Book of Thomas will tell you. He was a Gnostic,
Hmm.
and he never considered himself to be the Son of God. There's no mention of him being the Son of God.
Yeah. On the same page here, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. So this the suppression of oneself will destroy you if you're not being your true self.
Well, that saying has been heavily debated forever by scholars because it's open to interpretation. It's very ambiguous.
Yeah.
So we can make of it what we will.
Yeah. To me it sounds like if you are your authentic self, it will save you. But if you suppress your authentic self, you will be burned by it.
Yeah, I think that's why the saying goes, "The truth will set you free,"
Yeah.
because if you are open and you bring everything from within you out, then you set yourself free. You release yourself of any guilt, conscience. You don't harbor any hate or revenge or nothing. You bring it all out, and so therefore you really do live. Whereas the opposite to that is that you're never living because you're never free. You're always suppressing a whole multitude of things within you, and so you effectively kind of dead in lots of ways because you keep yourself in bondage.
Yeah. So on page 474, the kingdom of God is said to be an interior state. It's within you, Luke says, and here it says it's inside you, but it's also outside of you. It's like a state of consciousness. It's hard to describe, but the kingdom of God here is something that you can enter when you attain gnosis, which means knowledge. Yeah. So through knowledge, you attain a connection to God, but it's a like intuitive knowledge, so to speak.
Yes, and you see, the Kabbalists, uh, their whole thing is that they consider that they can know God through a state of ecstasy.
Yeah,
And when you get into ecstatic states, that is God. That's what I've been saying in relation to is the portal to God, DMT, or deep breathing, or things like that. Because when you enter into these ecstatic states, it feels like nothing of this earth. And so, and it's most wonderful and beautiful. So, what is God really? God is the highest of the high that we could ever imagine. So when we have a religious experience of the highest of the high which we've ever had, then it's very reasonable for us to claim that was an introduction to God. You met God, whatever God is, a state of mind, a state of being, a state of consciousness. Not a being, not an austere, manipulative, murdering mofo. No, it's a state
yeah,
of consciousness. And that's what Jesus was saying. Jesus was saying God is within you and without you. It's
yeah,
all around.
yeah,
And then, he went on to say, if you think God is in the sky, then the birds will get there before you. You know,
yeah,
God isn't sitting up on the clouds, and there isn't no heaven over there that one day you're going to go there. You
yeah.
know,
On the same page here, the secret of gnosis is that when you know yourself at that level, you will also come to know God because you will discover that the divine is within you. So, yeah, know thyself comes to mind.
yeah, because we can find it. That's the thing. We can find this beautiful, incredible freedom within
Yeah,
us. And when you've found it, you know it's there. Well, everything else pales into insignificance. What they tell you that you've got to be saved and you've got to worship Jesus and you've got to, be a goody goody all of your life and this that, and the other. No, you don't have to do any of that.
mm,
Once you find that spirit within you, then you found it and you know it's there.
yeah,
You see, Andre, all these notions about heaven and hell um, were never written in the Bible originally. Uh, the notion of hell and the devil was created in medieval times
yeah,
by by writers like Milton and Dante. You
yeah,
know, with Milton's Paradise Lost and Dante's um, Divine Comedy, they depicted heaven and hell and purgatory and all these sort of things. And you know, through time, from the old Aramaic writings of the Old Testament, things have been added and bodged and all different sorts of shit. And
yeah,
then we've got the Apostle Paul, which the whole New Testament uh, depends upon. If there was no Apostle Paul telling you that Jesus came to die for you, then
yeah,
Jesus wouldn't mean anything to us, really.
yeah,
Than just a guy that was, supposed to be doing some miracles.
yeah. And said that Jesus had appeared in a dream or something like that. What?
Jesus apparently appeared to him on the road to Damascus
Mm.
because he was persecuting the Jews. And then Jesus says, Paul, why do you persecute me so? And this, that, and the other. And Paul fell down to his knees and, this, that, and the other. And then he was a convert. But if it wasn't, if Paul, you see, I can't help thinking that, people planted this sort of shit because the whole Christian religion wasn't going anywhere
Yeah,
until Paul came along.
yeah,
Really, Paul sealed the deal.
yeah,
Because what Paul did, Paul told everybody that, forget about what it says in the Old Testament, that you've got to be goody, 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 goody. All you've got to do is believe in Jesus. That's all you've got to do. And then you've arranged your seat in heaven.
yeah,
And so that was easy. That was easy because if you tell people that you're a born sinner and you're the scum of the earth and everything you do, this is the sin, that's the sin, that's the sin, this is the sin. Well, you go, well, fuck me. There's no point in trying, then, is there? So what they did is they made modifications. They went, oh, hang on, yeah, it was being a bit unreasonable then. But if you just say you love Jesus and you worship Jesus, then that's it. That's everyone's ticket to heaven. Stupid.
yeah. This took its hit when the like Roman Empire was at its lowest as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it was like inverted values of the Roman ideal, which was very upright, while the like Christian Judeo Christian values was like turn the other cheek, and they had very like it was the opposite altogether, you know. So it was a very worm-like, so to speak.
yeah. There's been lots of machinations and all different sorts of shit going on for hundreds of years after supposedly Jesus died. Um, but when you look into a whole myriad of scholars like I have, um, there isn't a single thing which stands up to scrutiny in the Old Testament nor the New Testament. And of course, you always get the Jews that you say that this is history and that's history. If there is anything that's remotely related to history, it's been planted in there to be such, because it's just a book of fabrication. The whole thing about religion is human psychology projected onto the world. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
It's so plain to see for intelligent people, real intelligent people, um, who just don't stand for any of that nonsense, like Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins. They're just not standing for any bullshit stories in the fucking Bible. But then you've got people like Jordan Peterson, who is, very intellectual, and then he's trying to break his balls to make it to be true. And you got to ask yourself, who's paying you, Peterson? Who's paying you for this shit?
yeah. Yeah, I think it's like that, whether you take it the other way or the one or the other way, you know?
Whether you don't believe it or whether you do.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's like that, you know, because both sides want to prove a point so hardly that it's like this and this is like that, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's much more rational and reasonable to promote atheism rather than religion because the religion is a fantasy in the pie in the sky, and it goes against all rational thought. And so, if we've been given the blessing of a rational mind that by God, then it's that rational mind that tears that bullshit to pieces. And so, you've got a great schism, paradox, and dichotomy there. Yeah, religion. I've dealt with it for so many years now.
Mm.
I've come to the point whereby outside of the silly fantasy that may serve ignorant people, it's about time religion died. It's about time it was buried.
Yeah, but I could
I'll tell you what, Andre, just
yeah,
before we finish, I've just got to go to the toilet, man.
yeah,
Alrighty then. So, well, we're 1 hour and 50 minutes, so we'll wrap this one up then.
yeah.
Um, uh,
I think there's at least there's one more underlining here.
I'll just have a go at that then. Let's have a look at that.
Yeah. If I have a problem with most people being unaware of their true nature, then that is my problem, and I must address it myself until it no longer is a tendency to speak dismissively about those less fortunate than I. One of the most critically important changes we can make, which helps alleviate this dismissive propensity towards the fallen masses, is to have little involvement with the herd and most certainly do not watch mainstream media. Yeah, that's also very interesting because when you're having your rants about people and so on, it is a thing which you delves into yourself self also to try to straighten out and so on, you know.
Yep.
And that is really what is fascinating because you're working with yourself when you're doing that.
It's a purging.
Yeah, and like you said before, it is a way for the other people to learn something as well because they can uh, look at their ego reactions from
Yeah.
within and so on, if
Yeah.
they have the capacity to do so.
Yeah, and so they want to ban this so-called hate speech and free speech, uh, and I suppose that they ultimately want to ban people like me, who could be marginally upsetting any number of people. And so, what would they do if they did that? Well, they would be. Uh, they'll be preventing themselves from having any cathartic release. Because if nobody points out their shadow and stuff like that, they'll never introspect themselves and they will never be able to release the shadow aspects of themselves
Yeah,
and have a cathartic release to set themselves free because they're never going to be self-realized. You've got to be self-realized,
yeah,
and if you can't realize yourself, then you need other people to help you with that.
yeah,
And so the whole release thing, the rants that people have and the hate speech, it's a projection of their state of mind and
Yeah.
homeostasis. It's
It certainly shows how fragile many people's minds are, you know?
yeah, um, but because we're all human, we are affected by people and things. And
Yeah.
if we don't release it, then it builds up, builds up, builds up, and we'll end up on the Freudian couch because we've got a neurosis, because we haven't released anything and we haven't discovered what needs releasing, what we are actually doing to ourselves. You see, the amount of people that went to see Freud, they had no idea what the root of their symptoms was, and that's why they had to go to see a psychoanalyst to see what they'd repressed. And the world now wants everybody to repress the way they're feeling, and all the people that are really angry, and very many people are angry in Britain now about what's happening to our country. The government are forcing us to repress that. Well, intelligent people, psychoanalysts are saying, government, you are stupid fuckers because you've got no idea about the psyche of a nation. You cannot suppress that forever. It's gonna come on top of you, and this is what
Yeah.
revolutions have been about in the years. You just cannot do that. You can't tell 65 million people to shut the fuck up while we do what you hate. No, it's not gonna work.
But they can create a scapegoat and point in other direction to distract the masses and say it's this, you know, instead of with
But the
something.
anger's still got to come out.
Yeah.
They're not allowing any anger to come out, whether
Yeah.
it's speech or whether it's in actions.
Yeah, but if we take the lockdowns or all that kind of stuff, like when it was COVID and all that, people got very afraid and stuff like that. Then they put forth the Ukraine-Russian war after
Oh, they
that.
changed the goalpost. They changed the goalpost. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and then people like in Sweden that have suppressed anger toward this like migration and things like that get something else to focus on, and then they force all their anger into oh, Russia bad, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and they allow that. They allow
Yeah.
that to happen because they're manipulating it. Yeah, so the whole COVID thing. It was amazing how just as the world was starting to cotton on and people starting to go, "Hey, what's going on here now?" Quickly they moved the goalposts. It also it was the media wasn't even talking about COVID anymore. All of a sudden, it's Putin. Putin. It's the Third World War. All millions of people dying over there. Look over here. Look over here. Don't look over there.
Yeah.
Look over here. And that's all
Yeah.
they've been doing ever since. It's all smoke and mirrors. Smoke and
Yeah.
mirrors. But they're not going to get away with it because I watch certain stuff, which tells me that all around the world, people are gaining more and more and more in numbers, and they are going to do something about this. And there's
Mm.
lots of movements now being held with the top people floating around in on YouTube, like Russell Brand and the Weinstein brothers, and Peterson and Harris and Murray and all these people. They're going to conventions, they're going to venues to tell the world what's going on, and we're not standing for it. And they've got one
Yeah.
in I think it's in New York, uh, on the 30th of September or something like that. It's pretty soon, where many of the big wigs, the truth seekers, are going to be there.
Yeah, but I also think that all the revolutions that has been like revolutions from above. The French Revolution had a Freemasonry attributes to it. You know, even if the gallows were not only uh,
The
for
peasants.
the yeah the peasants. it became like chaotic for both parts in a way, you know.
Yeah, but then you can
But
see
they
that.
still got what they wanted, the powers that be, to get the people more into democracy and the sentimentalism of nationalism and all that kind of stuff as a ruling tool.
Yeah, so I mean,
And then the Russian Revolution was certainly Freemasonry and Jewry also.
well, there's always fingers in pies. This stuff runs very, very deep. But
Yeah,
anyway, I'd like to say it'll all come out in the wash. But it
yeah,
won't all come out in the wash because it'll always remain obscured and a
yeah,
conspiracy and misinformation, disinformation. Um, you see, the hierarchy of intellectuals on the world today, they're all stating the obvious that we just don't know what true is anymore. We don't know what
mm,
truth is. We don't know who's telling the truth or who's lying. We don't know what side this person's on, what side that person's on, because they switch sides all the time. And
yeah,
political parties once used to mean this, but now they mean that.
yeah,
Everything's becoming inverted, and
yeah,
this is the policy. This is what you know. There was this Russian defector, and I mentioned to him to you before. Um, he came over in the early 90s, I think, and he told America what the plot was that the Russians were going to do. Infiltrating, the media and the psyche of America, to bring them down. But everybody's doing it. The Chinese are doing it. The Americans are doing it. The Israelis are doing it. The Afghans, everyone's doing it to each other. They're all
yeah,
trying to undermine the psyche of their opponents. And so we've got the fog of war, and nobody knows what's going on. And the more atrocious shit goes on, the less people care.
mm,
It's like these pager bombs. Have you heard of the pager bombs?
no,
Oh man, uh, it's a real can of worms. But it appears that Mossad are using terrorist tactics. They put bombs in pages for people in Lebanon. Hamas supporters and this, that, and the other.
mm,
And, they've killed, a whole bunch of them. So just put it in pages explosion. These
mm,
pages people carry on them that goes buzz and gives them a message.
mm.
Yeah, well, they've been blowing up. So look into that, and
Which
that's a
is,
whole new can of worms.
mm. Oh, really? Mm.
Anyway, we'll wrap this one up. 2 hours and two
Yeah,
minutes. So
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we're getting through it. This one, again, very good. The last one, not too many people were interested in because
Mm.
it was about the Tao. Hardly
Yeah,
anybody know about the Tao, and
no.
so very few people, watched that. And well, I think about 100 people watched it, but eight people thumbed it up, and I don't think there's any comments, is there? Um,
Mm.
Maybe this one will be different because there's a whole bunch of important themes in this one.
Yeah, mm. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see how it
I
goes.
guess it is like that. Sometimes people
Ah,
watch, other
yeah,
times not so
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Yeah,
People are all interested in different stuff. So,
yeah,
yeah, okay. So, next time then, Andre.
yeah. See you next time, mister.
Cheers, buddy. Have a good one.
Cheers. You too, mister.